Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Review pre-match briefing. Myself, Joshua, Barrie, and Chris Jack, who is live in Nice at the what is it, Chris? Called the Allianz Riviera Stadium, I
It,
believe.
it is indeed, and quite an impressive arena it is too. First chance I've actually had to come out and get a look at it. By the time we got here for the press conference yesterday, we didn't get a chance really and get set up. And then, as you know, for those of you who tuned in for the post match or post presser video yesterday, I didn't get a lot of time in the stadium, unfortunately. So this is my first chance to actually come up and get a look at it. Tried to come and find a wee quiet corner of the media room in here, away from the noise. The Rangers fans have been in the stadium for at least half an hour or so now already. Yep. Home fans not quite turned up in the numbers yet, but I managed to find a quiet corner to discuss this one, and an interesting team selection, I think it has to be said.
Yeah, Mark says Joshua not on tour this time. Unfortunately not, Mark, but got to let Chris have his turn. So I am at home. But the thing is, Chris, before we get into the important matters of the team, as you know, logistics always seem to go wrong on Rangers Review trips. So we'll get to your travel back on later on, but I'm glad to be at home instead of taking your flight route. But enough about that. We'll get into the team because there is a few surprises, not least in the forward position. This is the Rangers team that lines up to play Nice tonight in the Europa League. Rangers' fifth game in the Europa League league phase. And the big headline news is that Hamza Egeman comes in for his first start in European competition, and that Dujon Sterling retains his place at right back. Discussion to be had now very much, Chris, as I come back to you as to whether Dujon Sterling should be regarded as Rangers' first choice right back. It was the last time in a European game that he kind of usurped James Tavernier, if you like, for the first time. I thought he did well enough against Dundee United in what wasn't a great overall team performance, but he was good away in Olympiacos last time out. I guess that's the main talking point, alongside the fact that Hamza Egeman comes in from the start. Definitely did not expect that tonight.
No, I think we discussed the Tavernier Sterling situation before and after the last game in the league. Also, not a good game to look back on or to watch again. But we've gone through that situation, touched on it with Derek this morning. I think we all can agree that if it does, as you say there, it does feel like Sterling is now becoming the recognised option at right back. It's not just a case of like resting players and using a bit of rotation. When you come back from the international break, having not played for as long, and you don't play, you cannot say you're tired or you need the break. So that felt like a big call from Cologne at the weekend. To then back that up to almost reaffirm it. I say it does feel like Sterling is now the man in possession of that shirt. I don't think people will be disappointed. I think how many times have we discussed this Tav Sterling situation over the course of the season so far. Obviously, not having Kasim Yurjo available as an option in there, it does kind of force Clement's hand to an extent because he's now rotating 2 rather than 3. James Tavernier, of course, is going to still play a lot of football over the course of the season. He's still going to have a big role to play for Rangers in terms of minutes. Time will tell what kind of influence he can actually have in terms of goals, assists, performances, and how he's judged over this season. But I don't think there'll be many people disappointed that Sterling gets that place. At the other end of the pitch, that's a big call. Myself and Derek spoke about it this morning, and I said that Dessers has to start just because there's no one else. Also, Danilo not in the squad. I just didn't expect to see Egeman start. I think when he has started games, I've not really seen the best of him. Not really seen that much to suggest that he's at the level yet. So it's a real show of faith in him. But I think it also feeds into just how poor Dessers has been. And we spoke about him post match on Saturday. Offered virtually nothing within that first half. So I don't think it's a decision that's going to upset a lot of people. It's one that a lot of people would have been calling for, but I'm surprised that Clement has made it.
Yeah, me too. Comments on Egeman, I'll get to now. Scotty says the Dessers haters watch Egeman tonight. He's too raw for this fixture, in my opinion. Luke says hopefully Egeman can show a bit more. He's a very raw player, but needs the minutes and experience to grow as a player. for Rangers. Cam saying, folk surprised about Igaman, but for me, I'm excited to see what he offers. Can't keep having Dessers spurn chance after chance in these types of games. The reason I'm surprised, Chris, is because I feel like of all games, these are the ones that suit Dessers, like high line, European team away from home. Olympiacos, perfect example, where he gets a lot of opportunities, doesn't have to play with his back to goal. Whereas Igaman, we've not seen him much as a centre forward. I think he's actually looked comfortable off the wings at points. Maybe Clement's thinking he wants a bit of pace up there because Nice are going to jump quite aggressively. But I'm struggling to see the pattern there with the team selection. I guess this isn't, it's hard to predict a Clement team at Rangers. But you think back to, for example, Igaman's first minutes came away at Parkhead, didn't they, when Rangers were 3-0 down in an Old Firm game. You look at the fact that Dessers started that game against Dundee United when I think that clearly wasn't a game suited to him, although you could say he scored against Hearts before the international break. But given that Dundee United were pretty deep in that game, I thought this would be a game that, of all games, would have suited him a little bit better. Is that fair, or am I being too revisionist before the games actually happened?
No, I think you're spot on. It's it does feel. I know that the manager touched on this at his pre-match press yesterday about the style of this side, and is it better suited to Europa League? Is it better suited to Premiership? John Suter got asked that question and started answering it, and Clement then actually came back in and he chipped into that answer as well. So it's clearly something that he feels strongly enough about. Spoke a bit about the injuries and obviously been denied those options, certainly in the wider areas in terms of Matondo and Cortez. But you look at Rangers overall this season, we know they're short of creativity, they're short of a spark, certainly short of goals. Is Hamza Agaman the answer to all of those problems? No. Is he the answer to some of those problems? I think the next 90 minutes gives him a real chance to find out, because I think there was a lot of people were keen for Danilo to get the start against Dundee United. Didn't happen, but he then came on at half time and looked bright, had an impact in the goal, and I think if he had been available tonight, a lot of people would have said Danilo deserves the start. So it's a big call, as I said earlier on, not to start Dessers, because you then look at heading into the weekend, who's the man that gets the 90 minutes, or who's the man that gets the nod against St Johnstone. You would have thought that would have been more of an Igaman type game than tonight. Because as you say, you look at Rangers' last game in Europe against Olympiacos, Dessers also gets the chances that everyone spoke about. He gets them because of the way that game is set up and the way that game unfolds when there's more space in behind. We know what his strengths are, we know what his weaknesses are. One of his strengths is not being able to be the focal point of the attack and hold it up and bring others into play. He needs that space in behind to try and operate, and he will, or you would think he would have got that in a game like tonight. So it's really interesting to see how perhaps Clement has seen something in the way that Nice are going to shape up and the way that Nice will actually operate. Maybe he expects them to do something different from a typical European home side performance. If it is, and Igaman proves to be a masterstroke, the manager can take a lot of credit. But it's really interesting to see how that unfolds. But you would imagine Dessers plays some part in the evening. I don't think we'll see Igaman get the whole 90 minutes.
Yeah, some feedback in the comments about me clicking a pen. I can assure you I'm not. I don't know if there's a bit of feedback, I think, from your headphones, Chris. So I'll let you rewire a second while I read out a couple of comments. But so people are accusing me of your crime, Chris. Comment here from RFC 5 stars. I think the image is about right. Don't like deal at number 10. He could be a big help in the middle. Yeah, Rangers aren't really playing a 4-2-3-1. At the moment, it's 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1. Call it what you want to, but it's more Raskins as the number 6. Connor Barron's part of that kind of right-sided triangle, and Diamandi's playing off the left. I don't think that's worked really at all domestically. I think it looked much better away in Olympiacos. Would imagine that as the configuration of the team tonight, and a bit of pressure on Diamandi, Chris, because he's not been great recently. He's been criticised, I think, relatively heavily, and he's someone that Clement really likes. He's someone Clement's really stuck by. Again, this is the type of game that's going to suit him more. I guess the concern would be when you're looking at team selection over a number of different games, is that Clement maybe isn't. I know he spoke about that in yesterday's press conference, and we kind of touched upon that after you were kicked out of Nice Stadium yesterday. The fact that he hasn't, his argument about not having certain players, not having creativity. I think the more pertinent argument is that he's not altered things enough with the players that he's had. He's tried to fit players into the system too much over the course of the last 6 months, and that's worked to his detriment and Rangers' detriment. But this should be a game that suits that midfield three better than it did at the weekend, I think it's fair to say.
There is no pen clicking going on here either, so if there's anything noise, maybe the headphone bounced off the laptop as I move about here, but there's no hands in my pocket, so there's no pen clicking going on, so apologies for any noise. I think, as you say, Diomande, it's not been a great season for him so far. There's not been enough from him, certainly in an attacking sense. You would think a game like tonight should suit him. I think we really need to see him dominate one of these European games and really show up in one of these European games, because there's a lot of when he first came into the club, it started well, and people thought the fee that Rangers had committed to him, this guy could go on and be a really good player, going to be a really valuable asset. I think you said to people now, is that money well spent? I think opinions perhaps have changed a wee bit on him. That's not to write him off. That's not to get too dramatic about it. He's clearly still a talented player. Clearly still got something to offer this team and to bring to the club. But he needs to start performing at a higher level. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Stephen asking who is on the bench. It's Kelly, Tavernier, Ridvan, Dessers, Dowell, Balogun, King, McCausland, Fraser, McKinnon, Rice and Curtis. So not an abundance of attacking options. Obviously, Yanis Hadji is not in there, and Danilo not in there either, Chris, which limits Clement somewhat in the attacking areas. But intrigued as ever to see how Rangers get on. I'll ask you your prediction before we round up. I mean, Rangers have felt like a different team on a Thursday night for a long time. I don't quite think that Europa League sheer optimism and excitement is what it was a couple of years ago, but it's still if Rangers can get a positive result tonight, and I wouldn't bank against them, then it gives them, puts them in a really good position to progress in the Europa League. The question then turns to St Johnstone, and obviously we know about the huge domestic games coming up and the difficulties that Clement has encountered in those types of games recently. How do you see it going tonight? I think it's fair to say that for as good as Rangers have been away from home in Europe, unbeaten in 6 European games away from home with Clement as their manager, as good as they have been, he really can't afford another poor performance tonight, can he? Faith is, I think, at a low. If you were to survey a lot of probably match-going fans at the moment, if you look at the league table, you could do with an optimistic outlook after tonight's trip to Nice. I think it's fair to say.
It's perhaps almost one of these. It's not a free hit. It's not a gimme.
Yeah.
But if Rangers were to lose, I think Clement could take a bit of heart from the performance. Of course, as long as the performance is there, because too often the performances have not been there. He spoke again yesterday about the second half against Dundee United being a lot more like it and being what he wants to see from the side. It was better than the first half against Dundee United, but the bar couldn't really be set much lower than that first half. It was completely dreadful. Rangers were better in the second half then, but still didn't do enough to want to win the game, obviously. So I think there's a bit of straw clutching going on if you say that second half against Dundee United is the level that Rangers should be at. You see, that was much more like it. It was better, but I think a bit of context is required there. If Rangers could get a result tonight, if they could pick up a win, it would be an incredible result for them, and I think that would put them through. Now you're looking at 9-10 points. Seems to be the figures that people think will allow you to qualify to the next stage. If Rangers could do that before the double header, or the Spurs coming up, Man United coming up, they're clearly very, very difficult games for them. You don't really want to be going into the Union game with a lot riding on it, and a result tonight also certainly plays a big part in that. I say even if the result goes against them and they were to narrowly lose, but give it a really good go and show something in terms of performance, it would certainly, I think, raise spirits a wee bit heading into St Johnstone. But we all know the importance of St Johnstone to then take you into next week, obviously, the Killie on the Wednesday, the EGM on the Thursday, and then the huge domestic games that are coming up over the next next couple of weeks. So the big games just keep on coming. The manager mentions at every press conference that they're playing every 3-4 days. The big games, I say, just keep on coming. But this feels slightly different to a league game or the League Cup final, for example. It's not a free hit. You don't get free hits as Rangers manager. You don't get a game where you can't set out a side to try and win the game. But if it was to not be Rangers night in terms of the result, if it could be Rangers night in terms of performance, I think Clement would take that.
Did you say a result? No. Did I miss that? Did you sit on the fence in terms of the scoreline? Because I'm going to do that.
I sat on the fence this morning with Derek, and I went for 1-1 this morning. So the last 10 hours or so, I've not changed my mind on it. So we'll go for 1-1.
I'm going to say 0-0 then, because I also want to sit on the fence, but you've taken my score. And just finally, a comment here from Derek. He says, even in periods of despair, I still look forward to watching Rangers, always in hope a page has been turned. So we'll leave you with that comment from Derek. Not our Derek, you never know, unless he's changed his surname over the course of today in Nice. We'll be back just after the final whistle. We'll have all your match reaction from the game as well. A reminder that if you've not subscribed to the website with our excellent Black Friday offer, it's £12 for a year. You get access to all of our unique content every single day of the week. You support these videos. You also get a free, fantastic print depicting Rangers 3-1 win over RB Leipzig a couple of years ago in the Europa League. The links for that are in the description. But until then, we'll be back after the full-time whistle. Enjoy the game where you're watching it, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.